Yo, what up? It's D-Lo the Doctor. You know what I'm saying? Just wanted to get on Facebook and tap in with everybody because I have a podcast that I'm actually working on right now that's going to be covering all kinds of topics in the music industry. It's always something that I wanted to do, since I've been researching a lot of podcasts and how they work. I'm subscribed to a lot of podcasts on YouTube. That's what I pretty much do in my free time. I read. I watch a lot of podcasts on YouTube, so I was just like, you know what, why don't I just go ahead and do my own podcast, just as a separate branch away from music and, another way to elevate my platform. I don't think podcast is really something that a lot of people think about doing, but since I've been so motivated from all the podcasts that I'm subscribed to on YouTube, I just decided it'd be a good idea. And where I wanted to start Death Row Records. I'm starting at Death Row Records because Death Row is one of my favorite record labels of all time. A lot of stars came from Death Row. There's stars on my shirt right here: Snoop, Dre, Pac, SUGE. And I've been doing a lot of research on Death Row lately, and I've actually had the pleasure to talk to a lot of people that was affiliated with Death Row as, ex-co-workers or, people that, was around in those days. And I tell you how that happened. So I've been watching the Bomb First podcast on YouTube for about 3 years now. And Reggie Wright Jr. was on there. He's a former police officer from the Compton Police Department. And so I became like a premium subscriber or whatever, where you pay a monthly fee every month and you get to, speak with the dudes or whatever that run the podcast. So I started talking to John Hyland, and John Hyland was actually a graphic design artist on Death Row, before SUGE went to prison. So I started talking to him, and started to learn a little bit of history on Death Row. And so, what's up, Purdue? I started to learn a little bit of history on Death Row, and I was just like, you know what? I would love to start a podcast and, cover all kinds of different record labels that I was really into, or record labels that I'm currently into, and I was just like, Death Row Records has always been, the record label that I've been the most fascinated with, just due to the fact that Suge Knight, man, back in the 90s, he was a intimidating factor. He had the music industry on lock with just his intimidation, his tactics to get whatever he wanted. He was kicking down doors at a very fast pace. He was getting whatever he wanted, as like a bully. And I was always wondering, how the hell was he getting all this power? He can't get all this power on his own. So I'm thinking, maybe he had, some real cats that was with it from his neighborhood that came along for the ride, and, that turned out to be true. So as I kept watching the Bomb First podcast, I got familiar with Mob James, who was like one of the homeboys in the in the security or whatever for Death Row, and it was like one of Suge's close friends in the neighborhood. Pretty much the guy that put him on to the Mob Piru gang, because that's something that, people can always familiarize with Suge, that he was a blood, from the Mob Piru set. So then, Mob James started kicking it with Suge or whatever, and put him on to the Bloods when he got out of prison back in 1988. And so they started a record label, and this was before Death Row. They started a record label called Fern Hill Records. That was the first label that was, official with Suge. And it was put together with him, Mob James, and Thomas Klein, who was this rich guy that lived in Beverly Hills. And so, they started that label. I guess it didn't jump off as soon as they wanted to, so they started, doing security for the Budweiser Superfest or whatever. And, Mob James was just that guy that put Suge on to the gang shit, because, when I start this podcast, I'm going to let it be known, that Suge Knight was not a fucking gangbanger. You know, people get that shit so misconstrued, you know. And it's people that haven't done their research. Because I made a post the other day just talking about how Suge Knight was not a blood. And, you know, I wouldn't say anything if I didn't do my research and I didn't have shit to back it up, you know. And then Reese Loke, you know, that's my homie. I ain't got nothing against Reese Loke. He cool. And then Top Flight got on there talking about just defending Suge. And Reese had some points. Yeah, he was from a Mile Piru neighborhood. You know, he lived in the neighborhood. That's where he's from. And, you know, that's understandable. But did that give him a right to go around, you know, saying he was a blood and saying he was a killer? No, it didn't. You know, you got people, you got real bloods dying every day in your neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? So how can you go around, you know, false perpetrating like this? You know, and that's just what I'm saying. Like, then Top Flight got on there like, bro, you need to stay off the hen. Because he was like, Suge was the most feared Mob Piru of the 90s. Bro, I almost spit out my damn drink. Because it's just like all this research I've been doing, you know, I've been talking to people that was there. I've been talking to people that was affiliated with Death Row. Hell, when I start this podcast, believe it or not, people, I talked to Suge Knight's ex-wife, Sharitha Knight. And the way I hooked that up is because I'm cool with John that got the Bomb First podcast on YouTube. So, you know, I asked her because it was a question that's always been on my mind. I was just like, so how did Suge Knight get with the Bloods? Was he ever like affiliated? She laughed. She dead ass laughed for like 2 minutes straight while I was on the phone with her. And I started laughing because I was like, damn, like I mean, I guess he must not have been certified like we all thought. She said that, you know, it was all because he was affiliated with, you know, all the dudes from the Mob Piru neighborhood, which, you know, that still don't give you a right to claim you a blood. I don't give a damn. You know, I've been in all kinds of hoods. I didn't drank 40s with the big homies in all kinds of neighborhoods, but I never went around thinking I was a gangbanger or nothing like that, you know. So I say that what Suge did, he used that as, you know, a scare tactic to get what he wanted in the industry. You know, that's all it was. It was a scare tactic. You know, he had people scared, and, you know, that was his way of getting things that he wanted in the industry, and that was the way that he got Death Row started. So that was just a big misconception that I was wanting to clear up with all these people on Facebook. That's why I hate Facebook, you know, and I'm only on this shit to tell y'all about my podcast. I'm just doing some promotion right now. But y'all need to stop it, man. I just hate when I do research on shit and then I got people coming to me telling me they know the actual facts when they didn't do the research, bro. Like, nobody has done the research on Death Row like me. Nobody can come and talk to me about anything that has to do with Death Row, because this is what I do, man. I study and I back my shit up before I come out about it. You know what I'm saying? I did all kinds of studying. I talked to guys that was actually there. You know what I'm saying? And everybody want to talk about Mob James like he's such a big time hater. You know, he was bitter for a while with Suge because his brother got killed. And, you know, of course, when you lose a loved one like that in that kind of environment, you're going to blame, you know, people, and you're going to feel bitter because it's just like, well, you know, this motherfucker was around and, you know, he was doing shit he wasn't supposed to do, turning people against each other, which he said Suge was doing. So that's why he was mad and bitter at Suge, you know. But he's not a hater. I understand, you know what I'm saying? Because it's just like this. If my friend started a business, whether, you know, it was a paint company or some shit, and, you know, he's making all this money, he then became a millionaire off this company, and I'm still driving a goddamn Toyota Corolla and he's in a Benz, I'm going to be upset about that too. You know, I think you put yourself in these positions once you become a rich person to put your homies on and make sure they good for life. I mean, isn't that what it's all about? And Suge didn't do that. Suge didn't keep, you know, the Bloods that had the influence on him getting what he wanted in the music industry. He didn't keep them cats well taken care of like he should. So I understand Mob James being pissed off about that. You know, I would be pissed off too if I had a homie, like I said, that started $1 million company and I was only making crumbs, you know, when I was right there putting in the work with him. You know what I'm saying? I think you are entitled to a little bit more than $1,500 a week. You know, if you right next to the dude, you know, putting in the work. So I feel his bitterness, you know, and he don't even have the same feeling towards Suge that he used to. He's over it. You know, he put money on his books. I mean, it is what it is. You know, he forgave Suge for everything that, you know, he may have done. But, you know, people get on social media. They don't know what the fuck they talking about. They don't talk to these people that I've talked to. And they try to tell me what I know when I've been sitting here doing my research for the past shit. I've been doing my research on Death Row for so long, bro. It's nothing nobody can tell me about Death Row that I don't already know. You know what I'm saying? And don't even get me started on Tupac. Don't even get me started on who killed Tupac. That's another big debate that happens on Facebook sometimes. Like, if you don't think Orlando Anderson killed Tupac, just fucking kill yourself right now. He fucking did it. You know, it's evidence everywhere. I mean, even Mob James said he saw that Cadillac in front of 662 that night that the shooting happened. And it's just like, people call Mob James a Tupac hater, but he's not a hater because he said that Tupac had no business going up to Orlando Anderson socking him. Because that's gang shit. You don't get involved in gang shit if you ain't from the gang. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's just like if I'm at the club with one of my homies and he's a gangbanger and we see a rival gangbanger and he's like, oh, there go that nigga over there. I'm about to go get him. I'm not about to be next to him, about to go get him because that's gang shit. That ain't got nothing to do with me. I know I'm not a gangbanger, so I'm not going to approach no gangbanger, you know, and not think it's going to be any consequences from that type of action, you know. So that's how it is. You know what I'm saying? Okay, Tupac was a mark. That's your opinion. But anyway, yeah, man, this podcast is just going to go a little bit deeper with everything that happened at these labels that I've been doing my research about. You know what I'm saying? Because I do my research before I try to come out and talk about shit, unlike other people on social media these days. You know what I'm saying? Everybody always got an opinion about some shit, but don't even know what the fuck they talking about. You know, and I just had to get on here, you know, dive in a little deep about the Death Row shit, because this motherfuckers on here, you know, that think they know what they talking about. You know, it's just like, bro, don't try to tell me you fucking, like, Top Flight, that's my nigga, whatever, but bro, lay off the fucking Hennessy. Like, bro, don't tell me that Tupac was Suge Knight was the most feared mob Paru of the 90s, because that's not true. The niggas that was behind doing the security was the most feared dudes out there. Like, bro, you got to do your research, bro. If you really, you know, want to go there with me, because I got all the facts. You know, I'm talking to people that was a part of this label. So it's just like, you can't tell me nothing that I don't already know. Nobody can, because nobody's going to dig that deep and do research like me, because this music shit is what I live for. Like, every aspect of it, I'm going to study and I'm going to learn about, you know, shit that went on in the industry, you know, apart from just doing the music, playing the music. I want to learn about, you know, the record labels and what went on in the 90s. I mean, Death Row was the biggest gangster rap company of the 90s, you know? Like, these motherfuckers was on fire. You know what I'm saying? And I'm so glad that I got an opportunity to connect with these people that have actually, you know, been affiliated with Death Row. Like, to me, I think that's fucking amazing. You know, that I was able to talk to former employee at Death Row and Suge Knight's ex-wife. I want to get down to the bottom of this, because the biggest misconception was always Suge was just a hardcore killer, a hardcore blood. Suge, and don't get me wrong, I'm not a Suge Knight hater. I actually look up to him as a businessman. I think that he really did a lot of good things in music and a lot of good things, period. I'm just saying he wasn't no real fucking gangster like everybody was trying to say that he is, bro. Like, it was the people that was with him that came from his neighborhood, his homies that he grew up with, that he put on. And then some of these people he didn't even know from the neighborhood. Mob James put him on. Like, Mob James was the one that introduced him to his brother Buntry when he got out of jail. And then there went Buntry. And then all the other Mob Pirus that Big James introduced him to. So it's just like calling him a hater because he was mad that, he walked away from that record label with nothing. I mean, I would be mad too if I had a record label making $500 million a year and I have nothing. Like, $500 million, that's how much Death Row was worth at one point. And nobody that used to work there has any of that money. Hasbro owns Death Row now. A toy company owns Death Row. So it's just like, I'd be mad too if I was Mob James. If one of my homies, I came up under him, I got my own company started, and he lost all the money, and now everybody broke. Everybody got to go back to the hood. Everybody got to start driving fucking Toyota Camrys when we was pulling up in Benzes and, fucking Bugattis and shit. I would be mad about that shit too. So it's just like, y'all need to stop it, man. Like, people don't know as much information about this shit than I do, man. This is what I live for. I live for these kind of stories. When I do this podcast, when it comes out, it's going to be talking about a lot of other more shit than that. That's just the tip of the iceberg right there. That's just what I'm starting this podcast off with. Like, right now, I'm trying to figure out who's going to be the co-host and all that. It's just, we in the beginning phases. But when it comes out, man, I just want everybody that, don't know what the hell they talking about when it comes to music in general to tune in and learn a little something instead of getting on Facebook thinking you know what you're talking about all the time. Because, bro, people on Facebook don't know shit. That's what this shit is designed for. It's designed to cause all this confusion with these people that don't know shit. That's why people are always arguing over the dumbest shit on Facebook, because neither one of the people that be arguing about certain stuff don't know a damn thing, And it's funny to see people argue about all these conspiracy theories. It's always two fools that don't know what the fuck they talking about. That's why social media, it just blows my mind, man. But I don't mess with this Facebook shit no more. I just wanted to get on here and talk a little bit about my new podcast and, all the new stuff that's going to be covered on there. I'm definitely trying to get some heavy hitters, some well-known people on there, and also some local people on there. It's going to be a free-for-all. I'm trying to, hook it up the right way. But we going to start talking about Death Row. Because a lot of motherfuckers out there think they know Death Row in and out. They don't know shit about Death Row. Like, come on, man. I'm the one that has been researching all this for 2 years. Ever since I started watching the Bomb First podcast and started talking to John Hyland and Reggie Wright and fucking Sharitha Knight. I've been talking to these people. Everybody on here talking about they know that Suge Knight was this big time gangster. If you really knew and you really talked to the people that I've talked to, you wouldn't say that shit, bro. I'm not taking nothing away from Suge Knight. Like I said, I think he's an incredible businessman. I feel bad for the man. I don't think he should be locked up for 28 years, but he was not a gangbanger, man. Suge Knight went to college. What fucking gangbangers go to college? Get fucking real. Gangbangers don't go to college. I know gangbangers. I don't know one gangbanger that ever went to college. It's not fucking possible unless you leave it behind. But, gangbanging, once you get into it, you can't leave it behind. You got a set to be at 24/7. You can't leave your set, And it's okay. I guess it's okay to, portray that image, because that's what makes the money. I mean, that's how it is with a lot of rappers, A lot of rappers out here got to portray the image of the gangster shit to make the money and to get the fan base that they want. It's understandable, bro. I understand it. I don't have nothing against it. As long as you're making good music, you're making good music. But when you start talking about, you know, who's with the shit and who's not, that's when you gotta draw the line, because you know you don't know who's with the shit out here unless you've heard somebody that was around that knows. And I know in my city who's with it and who's not. I can call out everybody who's with it, and I can call out everybody who's not. A lot of the people that's with it is dead, that I know. That's just being straight up. A lot of people that I know that's with it are dead. Because that's the kind of life, that's what happens when you live that kind of life. You know, I just happen to, you know, be the young dude that had a dream and had a good head on my shoulders in my neighborhood that I came from, that everybody, you know, they knew how to keep me out of trouble because they knew that I had a talent. You know, that's why I never got into the gang banging. And, you know, it's Kansas City anyway, with fucking gangs. Gangs is really popping out there. But anyway, yeah, look out for the podcast. I'm still, you know, coming up with ideas of everything that I want to cover. But yeah, we covering Death Row first. We going to have some special guests come through. Well, not come through, but, you know, we going to have some special guests come check in, you know, during the covering of the topics, just to let you fuckers out there know that think you know everything. Let y'all know that this is the way it went. You know, this is who was with it. This is who wasn't. And then we could clear up some of this shit. You know what I'm saying? Because there's been people that I know from Kansas City that, you know, people is just like, oh, he's a killer, he's a gunner. And the niggas don't be gunners or killers, bro. I mean, where do y'all get this information from? Like, the real gunners and killers are the ones in jail or dead. I mean, you got a few that may have got off, but, I mean, not that often do you find that, bro. But, yeah, y'all be on the lookout for my podcast. It's coming soon. We're going to cover Death Row Records first. Then we're going to talk about more record companies. I plan on talking about Ruthless Records. And for everybody out there that knows what Ruthless Records is, yes, the label that was started by Eazy-E. And I'm going to try to get, you know, Eazy's daughter on there. I'm going to try to get as many people as I can to make this podcast a great podcast. A very interesting podcast. I want to go worldwide with this shit. You know, so I'm not going to just stick to Kansas City topics. You know, the most we'll probably talk about Kansas City. We might, you know, talk about some local artists, have some local artists on there, and then, you know, we'll talk about sports. But other than that, you know, we ain't going to be diving too much into a bunch of Kansas City shit, because I want this shit to be worldwide. I want to think outside of this city. I mean, I've always thought outside of this city, you know, because I don't want to be stuck here forever. You know, I honestly might move back to Arizona one day, but we'll have to see. But yeah, man, this is D-Lo the Doctor. Thanks for tuning into my live, and my new podcast will be out soon. Tune in. It's going to be a good one.